every single day.
People want to connect with someone who...
Self-expression is life.
It is the challenge. It's a challenge of life.
You can't get mad at other people for not seeing your vision.
It was all about a grind. Like I said, I was selling CDs, DVDs, and clothes out the trunk of my
Whatever
car.
it takes.
This is for the people. Don't forget that. Welcome back to another episode of the Hustle Chronicles podcast. I'm your host, Zach Cohen. I'm here with Todd Houghton, president of Homewatch Caregivers. Thank you so much for coming.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Zach. I appreciate it.
We are currently at the Authority Brands annual conference, so I appreciate you making time. I know you're busy. You have hundreds of franchisees that you need to talk to. If you don't mind just starting off who you are, where you're from, and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you said, Zach, Todd Houghton, I'm the president of Homewatch Caregivers. I've spent literally my entire life in franchising. I started with my family on the franchisee side when I was in the 7th grade, long before I knew there was child labor laws, you know. So, but did that for a number of years, and then when I got out of college, I went on the franchisor side. And over the course of my career, I've gone back and forth a little bit, dipped into being a franchisee while staying on the franchisor side. It's been in the home care space for about 12 years at this point. So came on with Homewatch, coming up on just a year right now. Excited to be leading this brand. We are in a whole new direction and how we're going to deliver care as we move into the new year.
Amazing.
Bringing a lot of technology into the scope of it, which is exciting. Our franchisees are excited. I know, generally speaking, people that I'm connected with in the healthcare community are ecstatic with what we're going to do. So we're excited to get this rolling, excited to reveal it here at the Authority Brands Conference on Friday.
And I know that you work for one of the largest franchise home care services, Brightstar. So how did you take what you learned there and then use that for what you're doing now?
Yeah, absolutely. I will give a shout out to Shelly Sun, who's the founder of Brightstar. She's an amazing lady and growing her business and what she's done over the last 20 plus years. So I did have a lot of learnings from being there and looking at how we can continue to provide phenomenal care to the aging population.
Yeah.
Something like 67% of people over the age of 70 want to live their aging years at home.
Yeah.
So how do we do that in a safe fashion? And so taking that experience of being there for a handful of years and coming over here and really kind of driving us forward is what's exciting about what we do.
That's awesome. And how many franchises do you guys have?
We have 243 territories open and 137 franchisees. So like about 51%, 52% multi-unit ownership in our brand.
So, coming on the president role, you've been doing it for about a year now. Like, where do you start? What would you recommend for someone that, is going into an organization that you haven't worked for before? I know you have a ton of experience. So what would you recommend? What have you learned through this experience?
Yeah, it's a great question. So one of the things with our brand, we've been around for 40 years. Wow. So you have to start and think about that.
Wow.
Right? We, it literally was a tank when I got here and the tank wasn't moving.
Right.
So it was like, how do we, adapt and grow quickly? And I think, one of the first things to do is really just assess what's going on with the brand, understanding the feelings of the franchisees and building that relationship with them. So what I did is I went out to the field and hosted a lot of listening sessions with our franchisees over the first 90 days or so. I'm really understanding what do they need to be able to fulfill their dream of business ownership and to grow their business. And then took that back to my team at the support center and really evaluated how do we look at what we're going to do. And this was back early this year. So it was really, what are we going to do this year? And then what are we going to do the next 3 years, 5 years, and 10 years, right? So for us, we really just developed 5 pillars within our organization, and they surround around owner profitability, system-wide sales or owner revenue, technology advancements, being a leader in the technology, all about the caregiver, recruiting, retention, and then all about the quality of care that we deliver, which is our product, right? Mm-hmm. So we established those 5 pillars, and everything that we were going to do this year had to drive into one of those pillars to produce results. And we'll keep those 5 pillars going forward. The only thing that really changes on it is the metric number, right? So we'll keep increasing the metrics to achieve higher results for our franchisees. But anybody that's really trying to get in and take over leadership of a company for the first time, or if you've done it for years, it's just taking that time to evaluate what's going on and appreciate what the franchisees do every day, because they're the lifeblood of what goes on. So definitely I can say like it's worked this year. We've had phenomenal results so far. I mean, we're in the final quarter, so I feel like we're in the home stretch to do a great year. Hopefully. Hopefully. Yeah. Well, you know, we've got a couple months left, but you know, it's looking great. And it's really, you know, just being there for the franchisees is important. And the other thing is really looking at how are we going to grow beyond our base as well and get new franchisees. So we put a lot of concerted efforts into filling in the white space this year across the U.S., slowing down our international growth a little bit to give us more time to focus domestically, which is what we need to do. So
I'm sure, you know, I've been on the franchisor side, the franchisee side. I'm sure they really appreciate that you took the time to listen and hear their concerns. You know, we're a newer organization. We've only been around for 15 years, but a lot of times that's the first thing you hear is like someone new comes in, they're not even listening. They just have their own agenda. So I'm sure your new franchisees really appreciate that you're spending the time to make sure that you hear their concerns, and also that you want to make sure their bottom line grows, right? That's the only way this franchise system works.
And by the way, 15 years is not new. That's, you know,
I feel like
got roots.
Yeah. So I know some of your, you know, looking at your LinkedIn, looking at some of your past experience, you've really focused on revenue and profitability and KPIs. You know, a lot of presidents don't focus on that, right? They leave that up to the CFO or the COO. Why is that so important to you?
I think from my perspective, I mean, establishing the right KPIs for the organization is critical, which is what we had to do. But then looking at revenue and profitability, those are the two things that drive your franchisees.
Right.
If they don't have profit, they're not going to want to be in the business. Right. And then you get bad validation and growth and all that kind of stuff doesn't happen. And then revenue, obviously, you know, the saying, it's like revenue kills or cures all ills. But so we want to make sure that, you know, they're getting the revenue to get the profitability that they want. You know, people come into buying a franchise and they're putting their life savings, their retirement, whatever it might be, into being a business owner. And if they're not meeting those two critical KPIs, they're probably not going to be successful. So that's why I'm critical on that piece.
I'm sure it helps that you have an operational background. I know that you worked at Camp Bow Wow, one of the largest boarding pet care services, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
So a lot of time presidents don't have the operational mindset. You know, how did that help dictate what you were going to focus on first?
Yeah, I think, you know, I we'll broaden that a little bit. And I've always kind of leaned towards the operations piece of everything that I've done. And that's, I mean, it encompasses a lot of different things, right? And so I come in and look at like, okay, where can we improve the efficiencies? And that's all about looking at the operations aspect of things. In our world, in home care, we're driven a lot by where do we find the caregivers?
Yeah.
The labor that we incur is our cost of goods.
Yeah.
And so we have to improve the efficiencies. And the only way to improve efficiencies in today's age is through technology. So you've got to be able to, as a good operator, you got to understand technology. Or if you don't, you've got to have a good partner walking alongside of you to bring the right technology into the business. So, you know, that's where we've been in the last 10 months is in that technology space. What can we bring to market in the next, you know, 90 days? It took us like 6 months to figure it out, but the next 90 days to help improve those efficiencies. So we're on track to reveal a lot of things this week while we're at this conference, but then start a new way of delivering care next year, bringing technology in.
How many franchisees do you have at this convention that are coming?
We have, in attendance, we have just a little over 200 people. So we've got about 95% of our franchisees here, which is exciting.
Yeah, it says a lot, right?
Yeah.
They're here because not only do they trust you, but they also feel like they're going to add value and bring it back to their own franchise system. So I think that's incredible.
I mean, we're excited. It's the highest attendance we've ever had within our brand, from what I understand.
Wow.
And you know, that 5% that's not here, very valid excuses to not be here. So
Right.
I think we would have had 100% if we didn't have a pandemic that we've just gone through in the last few years and things like that. So
What does an organizational structure look for a franchise system your size?
from our perspective, you know, I mean, the unique thing, as you know, with Authority Brands is we have a lot of shared services.
Yep.
So in the brand itself, we stand with, you know, a structure around a VP of operations, a VP of products, which is our technology, a VP of growth and program delivery. And then we have a few directors that fall underneath there to help carry out the mission of our care delivery and the quality that goes underneath that. our training that goes on for all of our new franchisees as well as our existing franchisees, and then operations support as well. Our marketing teams, our legal teams, our accounting teams are all held through shared services, which, for people that are part of that opportunity of having shared services, it's great. Suddenly in a brand our size, we may only be able to afford 1 or 2 marketing people, but with shared services, we have access to probably 30, which is great.
That's awesome. And did you bring anyone on with you?
That'd be giving away secrets. No, I did. Yes. I currently have 2 people that I brought on. One's one of my VPs, and then a director I brought on. And we'll probably bring on one more in the new year as well. That bring tremendous home care experience. So it'll help us continue to move forward as a leader in the category.
Yeah, I feel like that says a lot about your leadership, right? Not only have you built the trust of the franchisees, but now you've built the trust of the team below you. And now hey, now that you trust me, I'm going to bring in other people that I think you're going to enjoy just as much.
Absolutely. And you're spot on in that stair-step approach on how I did that, right?
Yeah.
Build the trust. Don't just bring your team in, right? Build the trust, build the team in place as trust, and then say, okay, now we're going to add some headcount, and this is where they're going to go. And yes, I've worked with them for years in the past, and they'll be of value. And everybody's like, this is great.
It's awesome. So if you don't mind, let's just dig into what does an ideal franchisee look like? Do they buy into a multi-unit franchise, or do they start with a single unit? What does that look like for?
Yeah, great questions. I think one thing that's very critical in the home care space in franchising is you have to have passion about what we do, right? And I mean, you could go and buy a food franchise and not necessarily have the passion of making sandwiches or whatever it is that you do. But with us, we're taking care of people, and it's often like, we refer to it as the adult child or the care influencer. It's their prized possession. At one point in time, it was their kids that was their prized possession. Now it's their parents. So you have to have the passion a little bit. You're not buying a job. It's a 24/7 commitment. And everybody that wants to get into home care is like, oh, it's got to be super easy. It's like, no, are you ready to go out and be a caregiver? If somebody calls off, all those kinds of things. So critical to have just passion for what we're doing. As far as like the single unit, multi-unit ownership, as I said, we have about 52% of our brand that's now multi-unit. Wow. And it keeps growing every day. People want to expand. But when new people come in, I really err on the side of caution and say, let's start with one, and get that up and running, start making some money, and then look at the expansion opportunity. If they're really persistent and they're like, no, we want to, and a lot of times they want to because they want to protect the neighboring area next door. We'll have big discussions about it. It's a little bit more of a higher capital investment for them to do that. And we'll give them 6 months to get that second one up and running. But again, I think it's, I don't want to discourage people from looking at home care franchising, but it's a lot of work. And so to take on 2, is also a lot of work. So.
Yeah, I feel the same way about our franchise system. It's like people come in, they're super excited, and you try to warn them, like, this isn't like a get rich quick scheme. You're going to still have to be an entrepreneur. You're still going to have to build your own business. Yes, we have all the tools and strategies for marketing, for, everything under that category. We have all the systems and processes in place, but you're still going to have to put in the work, and it's not going to happen overnight. So we actually have something very similar to you, where people want to come in, they want to buy, multi-units, and we're like, let's just see how you do with one. Just because you have money doesn't mean you're going to be successful at running a business.
Right. Yeah. Suddenly they get on board and like, I have to go out and be a face in the community. Right. Yes, you do. And you can't cover that space if you have multiple territories. Focus on the one.
So now that you've seen all different types of franchise system, what would you say are some of the most ideal traits of a new franchisee coming in? What are you looking for?
Yeah, I think, I did mention having passion for what you do, right? Somebody who wants to grow that generational wealth, right? They're coming in and they're looking out to the future. I'm not just buying a job here today. I'm buying something that potentially could set up my family in the future. We can hand off the business to our kids when they get to be the right age, doing that kind of thing. So just that entrepreneurial spirit, the drive, they want to grow. That's critical too. And then, I think it's I listen and I watch to see how they react to things that we share with them during the validation process and through Meet the Team Day.
Yeah.
Because if somebody comes in and says, "Oh no, I have a better idea," it's like, no, we've been doing this for 40 years. I think we know what we're doing. Yeah, but thanks. Let's move on. So I think it's somebody that really wants to embrace the system and move forward with that. I think there's a book out there called The Wealthy Franchisee, and I don't know if you've read it or not.
We actually had him speak. I wonder.
Oh, yeah. So Scott Greenberg is an acquaintance of mine, and I've had him at numerous conferences.
Shout out to Scott Greenberg. He has made his rounds in the franchise.
Yes. But the one thing that he always says is that everybody's given the same opportunity, right? You buy into franchise, you're given the same opportunity. Yeah. It's whether you choose to embrace that opportunity and follow the system. If you don't follow the system, you're most likely not going to be successful. So I'm looking for that person that's willing to come in and say, like, okay, we know you've done this for 40 years. We know you've, enhanced it over the years. You've, brought in better technology, all these different things. Things change year over year, but we want to listen to what you're saying as the franchisor. That's critical.
I love it. One of the ongoing challenges of a franchisee is their people, right? You cannot be successful unless you have really amazing people underneath you that you're going to be able to lead from behind. Yeah. What does like a typical franchisee have in terms of their size organization?
Yeah, great question. And I always say hire to your weaknesses as well, right?
Yeah.
So when you're talking franchisees, like if you're not good at it, hire somebody. For a new office that's opening up, we do have a requirement that they have an operations person and a community relations person. So that's starting from day one. And then as they grow in revenue, they add different seats. So they'll get to a certain revenue level, and now they're going to have a full-time recruiter. They'll get to a certain revenue level, they'll have a full-time scheduler. They'll have a full-time care coordinator. So it's all based on the different revenue levels. Yeah. And over the years, we were able to identify like where that sweet spot is. But at the same time, we have KPIs that we ask them to track. So we'll tell them like, hey, your office labor should be at X% of your revenue. And that's also how they know. Like, so they're like, okay, I got to be at this percent. So every time I get to the next revenue level, it gives me opportunity to add more overhead for that expense. But successful owners, will come in beyond that 2-person requirement and know right out of the gate, like, I'm bringing a little more capital into the business to help cover some of this, and that'll help me grow faster. Some of our largest offices have probably 15, 20 people in the office itself. Wow. And then they have, 200-300 caregivers out in the field too. So, yeah.
So those people are hiring all day, every day.
All day, every day. That's why full-time recruiter is critical. Especially, I'm sure you all have the same struggles of trying to find drivers and things like that. But, for finding the caregivers, like there's a lot of them out there, but there's so many opportunities for employment for them too. Right. So you're fighting against a lot of other people.
Your competition.
Yeah.
So I think you touched upon it briefly, but, it seems like there's 2 ways to go, right? One is you go live somewhere and you have that option for your parents. The other option is you live at home and someone comes to you. What would you say would be the benefit of being able to have your company come out and take care of your elderly parents?
Yeah. So, I think the one thing is what I refer to as psychological safety. Yeah. So that aging person is comfortable in their home, right? They've been there in a lot of cases for 20 years, 30 years, maybe even longer. So to be able to stay at home and age there is going to help them live longer, right? Yeah. The other thing I always throw out is cost. It's a lot less expensive to have somebody from a place like ours come out and spend, 10, 15, 20 hours a week, maybe longer, depending on the needs of the client. But it's less expensive than being in an assisted living or even in a retirement community a lot of times. And we do often go into those places as well and provide service because a lot of families are misconstruing what, independent living is or what assisted living is too. And they think that there's all this hands-on care in assisted living when there's not. So we have to go in there as well. But I think it's exciting to be able to provide that type of service and keep people at home.
And for people that are starting to think about it for their parents, what would you recommend? What are the first steps that they should be thinking about to know if it's time to have someone like your company come in?
Yeah. The big thing is reach out, right? So we know in our world, that adult child care influencer will start researching about 4 to 6 months before they even decide to pick up a phone.
Wow.
And then typically what happens is they've been doing this research, they've been talking to their friends, and they go home for a holiday. Something happens. Right. Yeah. And they're like, oh gosh, we need help, right? One of the things that we're starting in January, we've been piloting, and I'll just let a little cat out of the bag with that, is one of our new service lines is called Active Care. And under Active Care, it's all technology forward, but it allows that person that starts looking 4 to 6 months ahead of time to bring technology in to get that peace of mind without a caregiver in the home. Because a lot of the pushback is mom or dad are like, I don't need anybody in the house, right? So the technology will kind of help with building that relationship, and then really, when it's time to bring in the caregiver, we're already 10 steps ahead and doing
That's amazing.
And then technology will carry through the course of the life of that person being with us and keeping them at home much longer too.
Wow. I love that. Yeah. I saw on your website that you mentioned like after major surgeries, obviously I just got a major surgery. Thankfully I had my wife to be my caregiver, but like just going through it, you see like, going before I'm like, oh, I'll be able to do these kind of things. And then after you're like, what was I thinking? So, what does that look like in terms of someone that needs after surgery care versus an elderly care? Yeah.
So ironically, a third of our customers are under the age of 55. Oh, wow. So it's a pretty big chunk, right? Yeah. And typically it is like, recovery from surgery. They don't have anybody to go home to help them with a knee replacement or whatever it might be.
Pickleball accident.
Yeah. Yeah. And you admit that. That's even better. Yeah. But, so we go in and provide the services to help. It can be, anything from some light housekeeping if it's a knee replacement, they can't get up and do things, with helping with personal hygiene if they need that too while they're home. But it gets them home, right? I mean, like I always use the knee replacement example. Used to go in and do a knee replacement, which I've never had one because I didn't have the pickleball accident. But you would be in the hospital for a week for recovery. Today, it's same day surgery. Yeah. And so you need somebody at home to do these tasks for you. So, we go in for a week, 2 weeks, just depending on the needs, and provide that service. But we also do a lot of like postpartum assistance. Yeah. So moms that have new babies, they need some help for a few weeks.
That's huge.
Like doing that kind of thing. Yep. So there's a lot of cases where that person is not somebody who's actually aging. It's somebody who's just like you or I, that's just like, I just need help for a week.
Right.
I'm recovering.
Right.
Yeah.
It's amazing. People don't think about how helpful this is until it's too late.
Yep.
So let's say a customer realizes it's too late. Like how fast, I know every franchise system is probably different, but what would you say the average turnaround time that someone can call in and then they could get your service?
I mean, our goal is within 24 hours to get started. Yeah. So, and that's pretty much the norm. And some do it much faster, depending on the acuity and the needs. Sometimes it may take a little bit longer to get the right match, but we'll get somebody in the home. And then as we're introducing these technology pieces, that helps us do started care immediately. So if you called and said, I need help like now with my mom, like we'll be out there within an hour or two.
Wow.
And we can install the technology today.
Wow.
To start that piece of care and then get the caregiver out there within 24 hours. So that makes a difference too.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, I'm sure your competition can't say that.
Not right now.
Yeah.
And I can say that, knowing that's true.
Yeah, that's awesome. What are you like the most excited for?
I think, two things. One is from the brand itself is just the continued growth and, being that leader in the category. One of our goals by the end of year 3 is to consistently be in the top 5 of the home care companies. Depending on where you look, we vary from 4 to 7, so we're like, okay, let's get consistently in the top 5. That'll happen within the next 3 years. I think my other outlook is really, I'm sitting here today as president of an organization because I'm all about helping people get into business for themselves through franchising. And so if I can just get, people's dreams fulfilled by doing that, that's what I love. That's what, makes me get up every day and go into the office.
It's the exciting part.
It's the exciting part about it. So I want to see that, whether it's with Homewatch or if it's like another Authority Brands brand or something else. I just love being able to help people get into franchising as well.
I know it sounds like you've been in Authority Brands for somewhat around the same amount of time as me, but like what attracted you to get into Authority Brands?
Yeah. funny because at first I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And then some people from above kept coming to me and be like, no, we want you to take advantage of this opportunity to come and change this company. And I think one of the big things was home care and getting back in home care. So I stepped away for 3 years to lead Camp Bow Wow. And so the opportunity to get back in home care, lead it. And then also the challenge of it being a 40-year-old organization and getting it up to where it needs to be and having the resources behind us to do it. So one of the great things, with Authority Brands and our investors that we have, they give us the ability to grow the brand, and I think that's one of the big things. There's other umbrella companies out there that are, PE backed like us that don't have the autonomy to really grow the brands. I think it's exciting. This is all about growth.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what really attracted my brother and I to join Authority Brands. Is like, listen, you're the expert here. We're not going to change that. We're just going to give you the support to help you grow and to speed up the growth process. You have so much experience in franchising. What would you say are the biggest hurdles that most franchisees can't get over, right?
I think, a couple things. One is, I think we touched on a little bit, is they're understanding that they're going to have to work on their business. Yeah. There's not many franchise organizations out there, franchise brands out there that you can buy into and not be in the business or on the business on a regular basis, right? And by the way, if there is, you're a fool to still not be on your business because
you can make more money.
You can make more money, or nobody runs it like you would yourself, right? You know that, and so that's the tough part. I think the other thing is also know when to get out of your own way. Yeah. And so back to my comment of hiring to your weaknesses, right? I think people need to understand that, oh gosh, I don't know how to do X, so let me hire somebody that can do it for me and do it well, and we can grow. And then the last one is know when to get out. Yeah. And I think that's a critical thing that a lot of brands don't want to talk about with their franchising. Of course. It's taboo. And I'm like, no, the day you sign your franchise agreement, we're already talking about your exit strategy. And it may sound weird, but it's important, right?
No, I agree 100%.
So it's like if, for us, we have 10-year contracts, so we're entering into a 10-year marriage. Yeah. But maybe we don't want to be together 10 years. And so we need to know what that's going to look like. It's critical, right? And as long as I've been in franchising, it's always sad when somebody doesn't realize how they could have exited or the right way to exit. And you have to have that tough conversation with them. And it's like, you didn't fail. You just need to find your next adventure.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, I've seen a lot of that, being on both sides of it, being a successful franchisee, now working with the franchisor. It's like sometimes you just feel bad because that person's trying. They just don't have what it takes to continue the growth process. And the only way to be successful is if you continue to be profitable while also growing. So that I think the radical transparency there is huge. And I'm sure that's why a lot of people are really excited to have you on board.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a good ride. It's going to be a great adventure going forward.
I love it. I know you mentioned that you moved to Denver for this role. It sounds like you've lived all over the country. What do you think that's taught you along the way of having so many different types of cultures and regions, Yeah,
I mean, I think it gives me the ability to engage real easily with people from every varied background, right? I mean, that's the big thing. And again, in franchising, you have people from all sorts of backgrounds in different parts of the country, which has helped a lot. It also helps, though, when that franchisee is like, you don't understand what it's like in our part of the country. It's like, oh,
we get that.
I do.
We get that all the time. Yeah. You're not going to understand because you're from the Northeast, and the Northeast is different than Florida and Texas. Yeah, yeah. You get it all the time. I'm like, actually, I lived there, and people are always like, they'll say something about a particular part of the country, and I'm like, yeah, I live not too far from there. And they're like, really? Like, how many places have you lived? And I can say I've lived in 28 different addresses over the course of time. So that's amazing.
Been around, and I'm not even an Army brat. I'm just, work took me a lot of places. Over the years too, was, when I was a franchisee, it afforded the opportunity to live in nice climates, not like Minnesota where I lived for a number of years. And I learned I didn't like winter, but so that's all those different things have helped build relationships with franchisees that we have across our brand now and other brands that I've been with. So. In Denver, you got skiing, so.
Are you a big skier?
I'm sorry, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And something to be said about waking up in the morning and seeing the mountains out the back window. So.
Yeah, I love Denver. Yeah. One thing that stood out to me is it seems like you work really smart. You don't just work hard, you also work smart. You know, it sounds like you've got a lot of things going outside of work too. What do you feel like has helped you grow into such a strong leader?
Yeah. Wow. I think it's really, for me, one is, first it's about my brand, right? So I'm all about like, how do we grow our brand for our franchisees and also for our investors and get new franchisees on. Second part is really like allowing others to fulfill their dream, as I said. So externally, I am on a couple boards of other companies, not franchises, but other companies, really helping that. And then really like reaching out and being able to consult to people to get into business for themselves, right? Or franchising, whatever it might be. I think those are things that I'm passionate about, I guess, and so that's why I do that. But really being involved in so many different sectors of the business world have helped me be the right leader and doing the right things. It's just critical to have a well-balanced background to be able to bring a lot of things to the table.
Yeah, I think I've learned my hard lesson there, where if you just work as hard as you possibly can, sure, you might be successful in that moment, but you're going to burn out and you're going to suffer. And there's long-term implications for not taking care of yourself, not only professionally, but personally.
Right. Yeah. Yes. That's also like critical, is like, take time, go spend time with your family, go, work will still be there.
Yeah.
It really will be there. And I think that's one thing that as a leader that I've learned too for my teams, like support center, is really like, hey, take time off, delete your Outlook off your phone for the week while you're gone. Don't look at it.
Yeah.
It's so funny that people are like, really? Like, no. And I'm like, yes, you're going away. Enjoy it. Recharge. Because if you don't recharge, then you're not going to be a great leader either.
Yeah. Part of joining Authority Brands is like, we got paid time off. And like all my employees are like, I don't know. And they've just, they've worked with me for so many years that they were scared. And now I'm like, if you do not use this time, it does not roll over, So like take advantage of it. And I think, yes, at the moment, they're very nervous to leave, but you wouldn't believe how successful you can be by setting up the systems and processes, taking a step back, recharging, and coming back and having a fresh new outlook on it.
Yeah, absolutely agree that, taking 3, 4, 5, 10 days, whatever it might be, if you're going out of the country, and recharging is critical to the success of everybody.
If you could have a billboard anywhere in the world, what would it say and why?
Anywhere in the world, I would want it to be in London. And I would say, follow me to fulfill your dreams. And that's all it would say.
That's amazing. I love that. If people want to reach out to you, if people want to reach out to your company, what's the best way to do it?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest way. Todd Houghton, Houghton, on LinkedIn, and connect with me there. That has everything there.
Awesome. Any questions you have for me?
No, I'm good. I appreciate you having me today.
Shout out to Elliot from Authority Brands for hooking it up and letting us have the opportunity to interview you. I've talked to some of your franchisees. I know how excited they are to have you on part of the leadership team, and I know how strong of a leader you are and how you lead from behind. So I wish you the best. And, next year at the convention, I'm excited to hear all the growth that happened.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me today. This has been great.
And that wraps up our episode, The Hustle Chronicles. You can follow us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and we appreciate you. Like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
It was awesome.
Appreciate it. Great time.